Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do a shorter video and talking about timelines. The book that I want to talk about is Ender's Game. There are actually 4 different books in this series by Orson Scott Card, but I wanted to focus on this one because there's a movie about it, but it's also one of the more famous ones of the 4. So let's get into it. Ender's Game. Ender's Game is the 1985 military science fiction novel by American author Orson Scott Card. Set in an unspecified date in Earth's future, the novel presents an imperiled mankind after 2 conflicts of an insectoid alien species they dub the Buggers. In preparation for an anticipated 3rd invasion, Earth's international military force recruits young children, including the novel's protagonist, Andrew Ender Wagon, to be trained as elite officers. The children learn military strategy and leadership by playing increasingly difficult war games, including some zero gravity, where Ender's tactical genius is revealed. There are 2 aspects when we're talking about the difference between the movie and the book, and in the book, Ender actually started off at the age of 6 and actually brought to the age of 11, whereas in the movie, they actually have him somewhere between the ages of 11 and 15. The actor playing Ender in the movie is actually about 15 years old. So this kind of gives you a more realistic age about how things play out. But the reason why Orson Scott Card has the character playing such a young age is this allows for a development to take place over a course of years. So this allows for a more realistic development of the character. The time spent in battle school takes place over the course of 5 years. In the movie, he stays pretty consistent, and these scenes actually take place, as it appears, over the course of a few months. But in realistic terms, the book has him start arriving at the battle school at age 6 and finishing up the final battle at age 11. This gives you a fair amount of time for allowing the character to develop and grow into the position that they are trying to achieve. One of the things that can happen when we tell our stories is that we don't allow time to take place. Granted, it is easy to get caught up in the emotions and the speed of the plot, but when we don't allow a breathing in our stories, particularly when we're talking about our characters, we undo some of the realistic aspects of it. So for instance, if you're talking about a character that gets injured, a significant injury takes time for repairing. Now, we can circumvent this by technology or magic, but when we're trying to slow down the pace, we need to make sure that it is expressed in the story. So for my stories, if I am telling a situation where there is a pause in the story, we can allow different things to take place. So for instance, what we could do is there is a harsh winter which bottles up the character in a specific area, not allowing the war to take place. Now we can use this to delve into other parts of the character and development in that way. So for instance, when we're talking about a battle where you are in a stalemate and you can't actually move and actually engage the enemy, that allows for the story to be turned inward, where it allows the story to become focused on the character and what their perspective and what they're dealing with. It is easy for the character to get caught up in the heat of battle, and when you slow them down, you actually allow them to actually start to ruminate on what they have and what they've been pushing away. It's easy for a character to ignore, just like for everybody else. We sometimes engage in activities to ignore what's going on around us, and it's when we are forced to stop and settle down that those issues become haunting. And that's what we can do with our story when we're talking about slowing down the pace as far as the pitch of the battle or the situation that we have ourselves in. How much time is your character ruminating and developing and thinking about the situation that they're in? And one of the things when we're talking about the battle school here is the fact that with the battle school, this gives you time to make realistic growth for the character. Wiggin is actually able to develop as a leader over the course of 5 years. And you see him through each of these points in his story to the point where he's actually competent, and Orson Scott Card has developed this character to actually make sense. He's not just thrown into a pitch of the battle where he is basing all of his tactical ability on his genius. There's a reason why this book is one of the books that the military uses as a way of developing an understanding of leadership. Orson Scott Card does an amazing job for this. So this allows for different things to take place, and how he's able to tell a story like this. The next issue is FTL. There's a issue when it comes to how close people travel at the speed of light to how much time actually affects them. And this is seen pretty clearly in this book, that you have a character who was alive 50 years prior to Ender. He is traveling at a FTL or near FTL, faster than light travel. He is traveling close to the speed of light. Therefore, he is taking advantage of time dilation, which means that as the closer you get going to the speed of light, the less time has an effect on you. So if you are going at 99.9% speed of light, you actually don't experience the time as much as if you were traveling the normal speed. Now, there is a degree that this applies to. If you're traveling at half the speed of light, it actually doesn't have that same effect as it would if you're traveling a lot closer to the speed of light. So what this allows for Orson Scott Card to do is actually provide a plausible ability for a character who was at the battle, one of the prior battles, to actually be there to train Ender. And one of the reasons why this is important, because this allows a connection from the previous battles to the current ones. So the character that is actually part of the original fighting group actually has personal experience and actually is pushing Ender to have a same level of connection to what he's trying to do. This is a counterpoint to what Ender wants to do. Now, this is played on a little bit later in the different stories, and faster than light travel is one of those things that really allows for the world building to actually have a big effect on what's going on. So FTL is one of those things that we can use to help tell and make sense of different world building elements. Now, we're talking about a broad understanding of how we can make sure that things have a link from the past to the present. This is kind of a way of doing a soft time travel. So we can use all of these as different ways of telling our stories. These are all ideas that we can implement for our situation. So for instance, if we wanted a story where we wanted a character to be alive during a specific time period, but also to be able to go through and have a different situation where they're looking to end up, we can totally use faster than light or near light travel as a way of doing this. And so what you could do is you had a character who was on a near light traveling vessel, and they are traveling at 99.9% the speed of light, and they are going hundreds of years into the future. But soon after they do that, they discover true faster than light travel, say a warp system. By the time they reach the planet that they're looking to go to, things have already fallen apart. You could have a plague, or you could have any other things that they are putting themselves into this world that is completely foreign to them. And this is an easy way of cutting out this overburdening of the world building, where you actually have a degraded system already, and you are allowing the character to learn just as the readers learn. This is the same mindset when you have a mentor and a mentee. By showing this character going through the situation for the first time, typically we see this through the mentee's eyes. But if you have this as the way of somebody seeing or discovering this new world, a world that they weren't expecting, yet there are similarities that you can sprinkle in so that it becomes a connection for the reader themselves, this is an easy way of doing it. This could also be in the inverse. So if you have a character that is in a despot system or a dystopian future, and then there's a character that shows up who doesn't have the same issues and doesn't have that same problem of what is part of society at the time, this allows for the story to get kicked off, where the person who is not the traveler can do more because they have somebody who's outside the system. Sort of like discovering a key to what's going on. But something else we want to make sure that we keep in mind is that, like I said earlier, that there has to be an appropriate amount of time for what's going on. So for instance, if you have a character that is trying to develop and overcome a certain task, they need to have enough time to do that. So overall, we can use time as a way of telling our stories, but it has to be done in a way that makes sense. We can't just necessarily have a single character show up and have them learn how to do things over the course of weeks and then have them to understand and have our readers to be able to empathize with that character. You need to create at least loopholes. So if, for instance, if you want to have a character who's able to learn how to fly, there has to be a fair amount of time to do that. So one of the ways that you can do this, The Matrix does this, where they actually have an input system into the brain where they can actually download the information pertinent for the task that they're looking to do. This way you can create a situation where they are able to find unique ways of circumventing the situation that makes sense. All right, that's all I had for today. As always, I will be linking the resources I use in the description below. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave it in the comment section below. Until next time, bye.
I am a poor, wayfaring stranger. I'm traveling through this world of woe. Yet there's no sickness, toil, nor danger